So I'm unmuting folks. We'll see in the background. We need to mute everyone. Yeah, I'm already hearing a lot of noise, so I'm going to go ahead and mute, and then you can unmute yourself if you have a question. Feel free to use the chat feature down here if you want to type in a question or raise your hand using the raise hand feature. To be respectful of everyone's time, I know you all are very busy. Let's go ahead and get started. This is an overview of what we're going to talk about today. Like I mentioned, we're going to do a phase 2 overview. We're going to address the response to recommendations in your summary statement, payments, how you'll be paid and when you'll be paid, the reporting structure, and then we're going to talk about a project highlight that a number of you have already implemented in your communities or have proposed to implement this upcoming year. As you know, phase 2 is the implementation of a community action plan that was developed as a part of the community assessment. The plans funded for phase 2 include policy, system, and environment strategies to reduce chronic disease. Phase 2 was offered in September 2015, August 2016, and will be again offered in late summer 2017 and 2018 through a competitive request for proposal process. I want to be really clear about that. In this last proposal, there was some confusion among those who had completed phase 1 and those who had been funded in phase 2, that it was not made abundantly clear that it is a competitive process. So you all do have to reapply each year with a new work plan. In your notice of award, you got 3 documents. One was a letter signed by Dr. Mark LeBeau, our Chief Executive Officer, letting you know that you had received an award amount, the timeline, and the reporting requirements. The second document was a subcontract, a legal contract to be entered into by CRIB and your agency. And the third document was a summary statement. The summary statement highlighted strengths, weaknesses, and recommendations that we recommend to strengthen your work plan. I do need responses to those recommendations addressed by November 30th. I understand that there's a lot going on this time of year, so if you're unable to meet that November 30 deadline, let's say you want to reconvene your tribal community team, or you have some concerns about the recommendation, or you want to challenge what's in the summary statement, I encourage you to contact myself, Consuelo, or Andrew. Any one of us can help address those concerns and set up a timeline that does work for you for addressing the summary statement. The summary statement in response to recommendations is not tied to payment, but it is something that we are requiring of you. So as it was stated in the RFP and the subcontract and the notice of award, agencies will be paid in 2 payments, 50% upfront after the signed contract has been received. Many of you have already returned a subcontract, and so I thank you for that. For those of you who still are working on getting that subcontract signed, please just let me know where you're at in the process. I know that it does take a signature authority, an authorized signature, so that may be your chairperson, your executive director, and I know how that can be tracking down that person if there's a lot of travel happening. So just let me know where you're at with getting that subcontract signed. It is the piece that holds up your upfront 50% payment. We did ask our finance department how quickly payments would be turned around when we receive a subcontract, and they let us know that typically the process takes 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes the process is super fast, and finance can turn a check around for us in 3 days. I feel like that in that case, we just hit a magic timeline where we've turned in our paperwork right at the time that payments are being processed. That timeline is not advertised to us as staff, so it just so happens that some payments go out really fast. But generally, we're told the process is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to get a payment out. So if you submitted a subcontract more than 4 weeks ago and you have not received a payment, then I would be concerned on your part to let us know. Consuelo is really good about processing that paperwork. Almost the day we get the subcontract in, the check request is sent to finance. So if you have submitted a subcontract more than 4 weeks ago, please let us know because it's likely that we didn't receive it. So reporting structure, as I mentioned, this is really similar to last year. We have reports due. I'm giving you the dates up front this year, so I hope that that's helpful. Part of that was because we're entering into a subcontract, so we had to be really clear about when deliverables are due. The first progress report and updated work plan is due January 20th. The second is May 19th. The third and final is September 22nd. Each of these we're requiring you to do a SurveyMonkey and an updated work plan. So to submit to us the work plan with the progress column and the final report, which is different and in addition to the SurveyMonkey, is in that narrative sheet where you write in paragraph answers about what worked this year, what didn't work, what were outcomes. Many of you who were phase 2 in this last year did that. For those of you who are new to phase 2, it's similar to the phase 1 final report. The questions are a lot more structured. That's due September 22nd. Any issues with SurveyMonkey, please address them to Andrew Stetman. He's our evaluator. The reason that we ask so many questions in the SurveyMonkey is so that we can evaluate our program to the best of our ability and be able to report that to our funder. So that's why those questions are structured the way they are. Andrew is going to host an optional tutorial on how to use SurveyMonkey on December 12th. And in that webinar, he's going to walk through every step of the report, the progress report, how the drop-downs work, what questions are forced to answer, what to put if you're not sure what to answer. That will be a really thorough webinar. So I encourage you, if you're concerned about SurveyMonkey or if you struggled with it, to please join that webinar on December 12th. And we'll send out a registration for that similar to this. But he's going to do a step-by-step. He's done that in the past. We're just letting you know up front that that tutorial will happen, and that will be the place to ask questions, test out the system for yourself. Because these deliverables are part of the subcontract, we really need them all complete on time. So we want to address any issues that might come up with technical difficulties related to SurveyMonkey. We have thought out some troubleshooting. Let's say someone's internet is not working, which did happen this last year with some wildland fires. People lost internet, and so we do have some measures in place to support you if something like that occurs and you're not able to get on SurveyMonkey. Please let us know in advance if you think that might be an issue, and just let us know if there are problems, because we do have some safeguards in place to support you in that. Are there any questions? I'm going to check to see at this point. Don't see any hands raised. Let me just check. So work plan updates. In this year's work plan template, we included a progress column, so you all have already seen that. I just want to be clear that you remember to include and complete the number of people reached box on the work plan. This is first arrow showed pointing to where we expect the progress, so it's just kind of give us, a very brief sentence on what's happening with that activity. For each activity, and then remember to include the number of people reached. Site visits. We have been out to most of you, not everyone, but we will be making a site visit this coming year, at least one site visit in the program year. Andrew and I kind of talked about this last week, about a timeline for site visits and what makes sense for us and what makes sense for you. And I am thinking we would like to start site visits between like February to July. That way it gives you an opportunity to get your program running, start some activities, and it makes our site visit more useful to you and more useful to us. So we'll reach out to schedule those to determine a time that is good for you. we do try to be strategic about our site visits. So if there are a number of subawardees in the same geographic region, we like to go there all at once and see you all on the same visit. It helps with our travel burden. It helps keep our costs low so that we can make it to all of the sites. That's some of the reasons why we schedule our site visits in that way. So we may suggest a number of dates to you, which I'm just telling you up front, that's why we would suggest dates in advance instead of just openly asking you what dates work for you. However, we work for you. We work to support your program and provide any assistance that you might need. So if we're coming to your area to see a neighbor and you absolutely can't meet with us at that time, that's okay. We'll come back. We're not going to not see you if you need us there. We are doing, and I'm sure you saw this in the request for proposal, a change tool follow-up. So you are required to complete a change tool follow-up, which is essentially completing the change tool that you completed in phase 1 again. We're considering phase 1 our baseline, and this follow-up would allow us to see if anything changed. Now, we had a really long discussion yesterday about what do we anticipate seeing change, how many things do we think will move in a positive direction, and I know that for many of you, you've chosen 1, 2, 3 strategies to work on that may or may not have come directly from the change tool, and in that case, we would really only expect those 3 things to move because we know that those are the 3 things that you have chosen to work on, and so I'm not expecting everything to move in a positive direction or everything to change from everything's a problem and now it's all addressed. That's not what we expect in this change tool follow-up. We will provide TA again on that. Consuelo is going to be the lead on the change tool follow-up, so you'll hear the most about this project from her. She'll be setting up webinars, sending out the links. One of the things that we do really want to encourage this year and are going to push really hard for is that you really pull together your tribal community team in completing these. Some of you have very strong teams and others are still working to build those, and so we want to help build those if that's an issue. And that might be hearing from other grantees how they built their tribal community team, how they seek input. We want you to be able to share across each other, and because we don't know exactly why it's working so well in this community and not so well in this other community. So having an opportunity to crosstalk about that, I think, could be helpful. We're going to release that in May. So you have some time to get your program started, start implementing some activities, and not, be stressed about this change tool at this moment. It won't be until May. It'll likely be due in June, although I'm having some internal discussions about pushing that timeline back a little. Not so close to final reporting time, but maybe even back to August. So stay tuned on the timeline, the deadline for that. You all should have received an email yesterday from our program evaluator, Andrew, about a training survey. That survey really needs to be complete by December 16th. I'm really proud to say that when we do surveys, it directly impacts the work we do at ACORNS. So we do not want to host webinars for the fun of hosting a webinar or set up entire training agendas based on what we think is exciting. We really want it to match your needs. What are things you're interested in hearing about? And one of the ways that we can do that is through the training needs survey. It's asking you what would be useful to you. It is structured a little bit different from last time. We hope in a way that will better inform our work. So I'm just really requesting all of you to complete the survey. Even if a couple of people at your agency complete it, we want to hear what would you like to see from our program in terms of training and opportunities that would help better your work. We have some ideas, and I mentioned that this is one of the ways to give us feedback. In addition to completing this survey, Some grantees do approach me when they see me, and some call me and say, here's what I really liked and what I want to see again. Or some are very direct and say, that wasn't useful to me. Here's what would be useful to me. And we bring that back and we talk about that with the team. Some have requested really more hands-on training, and so we're taking that feedback into our program to see how can we be more hands-on about the way that we talk about programming and offer trainings. I'm bravely unmuting everyone for a minute because we're kind of through the programmatic stuff. Are there any questions at this point? I almost have everyone unmuted. I know we went through this really quickly. Questions?
Yes, this is Andrew, the program evaluator. Just for clarification, the training needs or training useful surveys due December 16, 2016, not 2017.
That is an excellent point, Andrew.
It's this year, not next year.
Yeah, it is not due next year.
Virginia,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
On the surveys that are being taken, is it one, like we do one survey for the whole, or let's say Cloverdale, is it just one person fills out the survey, or is it more than one that can fill out the survey?
More than one can fill out the survey. But I would like at least one from each of the agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question, because I know, you know, there are multiple people working on the grant, and so, you know, among Consuelo and I, we have different interests, and we have different areas of need that we need training in, and so we would do the survey differently. Our interests and areas of need would be different, even among the ACORNS staff. Just so you know, we're not completing the survey. I'm just giving that as example. Other questions at this point over anything that we've talked about? Reporting, timelines, funding, summary statements. Okay, I'm going to put everyone back on mute for a moment, and we're going to move forward. So we're going to talk about a program highlight. I've structured this in a way that I hope is familiar. The priority area for this specific strategy is physical activity. So why is increasing physical activity important? The physical environment where people live, work, and play is critical to increasing access to opportunities for physical activity and a sense of community. There are many strategies that create environments that foster and promote increased physical activity. Today we're going to talk about one strategy. It is not the one and only best strategy. It is just one among many strategies to increasing physical activity. We have seen some incredible strategies over this last year that are working very well, and I hope to highlight some of those as we move forward. We highlighted a few at our last wellness conference, so this is just one. It is a strategy that some folks are picking up for the first time this coming year, and so I wanted an opportunity for us to talk about it. So we're going to talk about a bike share program. What is a bike share program? It's a transportation program ideal for short distance, point-to-point trips, providing users the ability to pick up a bicycle. And this one says at a self-serve bike station, but it doesn't have to be self-serve, and we're going to talk about that, and return it to another bike location within the system's area. Primarily, they have been used in very urban areas. The ACORNS program and other programs, particularly in the Toyabe area, have not run it like an urban program, and we're going to hear a little bit about how those work. So the first edition of bike share programs were free use bikes in different cities that were all painted the same color. So on bike racks, like all bikes were painted yellow, and community members knew that If you saw a yellow bike parked at a city bike rack, you could pick it up and ride it to any location you want. The second edition of a bike share program included locks. So the bikes needed to be locked up, and only people with a key or with the unlocking key code could get a bike. The third generation has had electric card reading kiosks, so not with a person at all, but in many cities throughout the United States, you can use a key card to check out a bike. And then what's new to the bike share program is GPS locating bikes that can be tracked by a system. We are going to talk about a program that looks a lot like the first and second one. So distinct bikes that have a locking mechanism potentially and or are run by a staff person or a volunteer in a community. So how do you create a bike share program? These are just kind of some of the steps. In full transparency, I have not created a bike share program, but I have done a lot of reading about them and have seen the success of them, which is why it's a strategy I have pushed this last year. So the steps to make a bike share program would be to draft a timeline that includes the creation of a policy, purchasing of bikes, and other needed supplies. Many of you already have done that in your work plans submitted to me that included a bike exchange program. You've already established the costs of the bikes, who would operate the bike share program, where they're parked, the locks, things like that have already been covered. If you didn't include a bike share program in your work plan and this is piquing your interest, we can talk about that. You're going to have to identify a location for the bikes and the bike racks. For some people, that will be really intuitive. It'll be right at the tribal office. There will be a bike rack. The receptionist will be the one checking the bikes in and out. For others, it might not be that clear. Maybe you want your bike exchange program to be located where Tribal TANF is located. Maybe you want it to be located at the Tribal Health Program. Maybe you want 2 bike racks run by 2 different agencies that people can ride their bikes between. Every community truly looks different, and so the bike share program would look different among subawardees. You need to identify someone to operate the program. Ensure that there's a plan for bicycle maintenance. This is really big. Because I think sometimes we can get really excited about a program and then not realize like what happens when the tires go flat or someone's really rough on a bike. Things just happen. So what's going to be the plan for bicycle maintenance? Who will repair the bicycles? Is that in the budget? Is maintenance in the budget? How do you fit it in the budget? Estimating costs for that will all have to be thought through. And then to identify the service hours that are convenient to the community, create policies on late and no return situations. So it's not helpful if you have a bike exchange program during a time that no one can ride the bike. A bike exchange program in a community that does not have street lights late at night may not be most widely used. So that's something to consider. What are the hours that people will use bikes? Will it be young people using bikes? And by that I mean school-age youth. If it's school-age youth who are using the bikes, you want to make sure that the exchange program is run during the hours that kids are not in school. So that's one thing to consider. Other things to consider for a bicycle exchange program. Will you make helmets available? Will you make them required? In some bike exchange programs, it is required that you wear a helmet or that you sign a waiver of liability if you choose not to wear a helmet. Who do you anticipate, like I mentioned before, what will work in your community? Who do you anticipate will use the bikes? Will you have a grand opening? How will you let everyone know about the bike program? Maybe you want to operate the bike program for a month or 2 just to see how it works before you start this big announcement for everyone about the bikes. How are you going to brand the bikes so it's clear they belong to the bike share program? If you buy 10 bicycles from the local Walmart at the same Walmart where everyone else buys their bikes, it will be really difficult to distinguish those bicycles as the tribal bike program. So that's something to consider as well. How are we changing the environment? You're making bicycles available. Maybe there are income issues why people don't own bikes. Maybe there are maintenance issues why people don't buy bikes. The other thing to consider is to make sure that there are bikeable pathways that are safe for community use. You don't want to distribute bikes if there's no place for people to ride the bikes in the first place, or if it's going to be really dangerous. That's something to consider as well. I have asked for Big Pine to share their bicycle exchange program. So let me see if I can unmute Mariah. Okay, I don't see her on here. I'm going to unmute. I don't see her. I'm looking through the list here. No. Looks like she wasn't able to join today. But I'll tell you that this photograph is at the Big Pine Paiute Shoshone Tribe's wellness gym. And so inside there is gym equipment. There are like treadmills, weights. There are classes that happen at the wellness center that people can take, yoga, things like that. And just outside the office is this bicycle rack where these bikes are locked. And there's a checkout sheet. So you just walk inside the wellness center. You let them know that you're there to check out a bike. You check out the time that you're taking the bike and your anticipated return, and it's all run right by the staff who is operating the gym that day. So that's how the bicycles are checked out and checked in, and you check out and check in based on the hours that the wellness center is open. I want to say it's open till like 7 or 8 p.m. We were there several months ago, so I don't know if those hours changed. I know they're trying to expand the hours to the early morning and a little bit later in the evening as well. But this is literally what the bike exchange program looks like. I think it's important to have a visual on what it looks like in a tribal community. They are this beautiful bright color, and the tribe does the maintenance on the bicycles as well. Janice, I know you are on here, so I'm unmuting you.
Hi, this is Janice.
Hi, Janice. Can you share a little bit about the Bridgeport Bicycle Exchange?
Okay, we pretty much, as long as I'm here at the office, I'll let anybody come in and check out a bike during business hours. We have our liability form that they do have to read and sign. We offer helmets with the bikes and bike locks, since we don't have an actual area to lock them in all the time. But we do get people that ride to the wellness center. We've got bike racks there for the bikes to be locked up when they go and exercise. We also have our bike racks at the administration building, so when people come here to conduct business, they have that opportunity. As you see in that picture, we also have the baby carrier, and right now I have that checked out to a family because they have 2 small children. And that helps them, the husband and wife, to take their kids with them when they go and ride. So they really enjoy that extra safety measure that we have. Every bike that I do check out, I encourage the helmets, but a lot of times people refuse it. When I tell them, I said, it's a state law. It's required. If you ride the bike, it's for safety. But again, they sign the liability. They do check out the helmet. Whether they wear it, I'm not going to monitor that because it's like choice. But it's been working really well. The bikes have been out, quite a bit. And the way I'm handling my maintenance on them is, if something kind of breaks right now, well, then they can check out an alternative bike. I'm scheduling a maintenance person from the bike shop where we purchase the bikes. He is going to do a day of repairs and maintenance and do a complete overhaul on all of my bikes. And this is at the end of the season. So when all the bikes come back in here in the next couple of weeks, in the spring after the snow's gone, then we'll check out the bikes again for people to use. So that's how we're going to handle our maintenance until we get that person on staff to do daily maintenance as we need. But it's working.
So Janice, when you let someone check out a bike, is there a time period? Like if they check it out in the morning, do they have to have it back by 5 p.m.? Or can they check out the bike for several days at a time?
They can check the bike out for several days at a time.
That's awesome. So you know, I really appreciate you sharing, Janice, because these bicycle exchange programs look different in tribal communities. So that's really being flexible to the needs of the tribal community, because it may not be helpful to ride a bike between 9 and 5. Maybe you want to take your kids to school in the morning, or I don't know. So does anyone else have questions for Janice, someone who, I'm going to kind of go through and unmute people because she's our subject matter expert today on the bike exchange program. So I'm unmuting folks. Please feel free. Give me a second to get everyone unmuted. Are there questions for Janice? Janice, where are these bikes located?
Okay, the picture that you see here, this is a location in our maintenance warehouse, and you see the bikes, we have them installed on the wall, so we just lift them off as we need them. We have different sizes because we have short people and tall people, so you go from 19 inches all the way up to, 22 inches, or you can even go to 24 inches, depending on how tall your people range. We have men bikes and women bikes, so then you can alternate and satisfy, both genders. And then we have 2 youth bikes. They're the black ones that are toward the end. And then we have 2 bikes that are in the middle with the big fat tires. And the bikes in the pictures right here, they're more of a mountain bike with the bigger lug on the tire. But before the end of the program, we purchased 4 more commuter bikes, and that's more for street. They're not as thick as far as the lug tire. The seat is more comfortable, not as narrow, but it's more for street. And those, everybody that's rode them really enjoy that ride. So the mountain bike is more for our bike trail and our off the road, because that's pretty much what we have here. But the other bike is more for the street and the road, and they're really a comfortable ride.
Thank you. We're about to the end of our webinar, but I want to point out a couple of things. One, I uploaded handouts to this webinar that we can also email out, but let's take a look at them. One is a copy of this presentation. That's the Phase 2 final PDF. The other is what the questions look like in the reporting. So let me share that so you can see it.
Go to Grant Vantage just from your
loading. This is the questions. I'm going to go ahead and put on mute again.
I will put the outline vector in for that.
Okay, very good, yeah.
So this is the questions that are asked via SurveyMonkey in the progress report. So that I shared you are due 3 times this year. We ask on a number of topics: commercial tobacco use and exposure, healthy eating and local foods, exercise and physical activity, and community clinical linkages. This PDF is a sample use only. It is not intended for you to complete, but it is intended for you to see in one document what all the questions are. This is in response to feedback that we have received. Some folks have said it, and I totally understand this, which is why we're trying to be more helpful in this way. It can be difficult to do a progress report when you don't know what the next question is until you complete, like, step by step. So this would offer you the ability to see all the questions in advance. We do ask for contact information every single time because this changes. It changes a lot among our agencies. So I'm sorry if you feel that it's redundant for you, but for some agencies, every reporting period, at least 2 are flagged where we have contact information that has changed. So it asks, do you have a strategy around commercial tobacco use and exposure? You say yes or no, and how you answer that question will trigger another set of questions. So I have included here bold red letters that say these questions will only appear in SurveyMonkey if you indicated no to the prior question. So then it asks you a series of questions. I'm not going through these in detail because I mentioned to you that Andrew will be going over the progress reporting webinar in great detail. This is just for you to see today. And then another section that says this part up here, it was missing the flag. If you answered yes, please indicate, and then it asks you a series of questions. And that looks like this is this. If you answered no, answer these questions. And then if you answered yes, these are the questions that would come up. All of the language in this progress report should be very familiar to you. The strategies that we're asking were asked in the change tool guide. They were offered to you in the policy system and strategies environment resource guide that you all should have received a printed booklet of it, and also electronically. It's available on our website. And then you'll see these strategies be asked again when we do our change tool follow-up. The language is within the ACORNS program hopefully very consistent to a point where you have all the strategies nearly memorized. We certainly are seeing them a lot on this end. It is a very long survey, but I want you to know if you say yes, a certain set of questions pop up. If you say no, a certain set of questions pop up. So although you see me scrolling through a lot of questions, in no case will you be answering every single question, because you'll be indicating yes or no, or yes to all, or, you know, you should say yes to at least one of the major questions. If you don't, we flag that and we're going to follow up with you about what's happening. So this is just so you can see. In the end, we ask some open questions that are not exactly based on those strategies. We ask for additional comments, what kind of health education, who your tribal community team is. That sometimes changes as well. Maybe you bring new players to your team. Maybe some people have moved on, or that's just not what's working in that moment. So we ask you to tell us who's on your tribal community team here. What community resources that you have and are bringing to the program, and your partnerships. This partnership section is really important to us. It's something that we report to CDC, who our subawardees are working with, and what partnerships they're establishing. It is an area that some folks have indicated that they need help in, and so we are building our resources here too to be able to help folks build those partnerships. And then if you have any MOUs established with your partners internally or externally, and then anything else you want to say. So please know we do not take these progress reports lightly. These are all read very thoroughly. They are analyzed, and they are used for our reporting structures. So take the time to really think thoroughly through them. They are our major deliverables of the phase 2, is that you're completing these reporting progress reports. So take time if you want to leave comments to us about what's happening. You know, we have had grantees encounter some unforeseeable issues, be it weather, be it fire, or a change in leadership that has changed what happens. And so we encourage you to have an open dialogue with us and let us know what's happening. You can do that in the reporting structure or email or phone with us. I'm going to unmute folks and just give everyone a chance to ask any questions. If you want me to go back to a certain slide, we can do that. Does anyone have questions? I think I have everyone almost unmuted. Okay. Except for those of you who have yourself muted, which is fine. Are there any questions for us?
Yeah, this is Janice.
Yes, Janice.
On some of the timelines that we write, is it okay if we don't meet the time that we put down, if we can, you know, like move the date ahead or move it back? Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
'Cause I know sometimes, you know, things come up that, you know, something has to change. Is that all right to make those changes in there?
Yes. So please just communicate that with us. Let us know that a timeline has changed. For example, we had a grantee who encountered really bad weather that no one could anticipate, and they needed a timeline to summertime off when it was raining. So yes, absolutely, we can change the timeline. If you're going to change the strategy altogether, let's say you were going to tackle a nutrition policy, then I would, and now you're not going to do that anymore, then we have to have a full discussion about what strategy you are picking.
Because you have this year, which sounds like you're going to advertise this to open it up again.
Are there other
That's why
questions?
I said that.
I just wanted to mention this one thing, and I'm going to mute so everyone can hear. Our program website has been, for the last 2.5 years, cribacorns.org. CRIB was in a transition phase with our website when the ACORNS program was funded and building up. And so at the time, it was the best decision for the program and for the agency for the ACORNS program to just have our own standalone website where we could communicate resources, upload our webinars, and you all would have access any time of the day to any resource that ACORNS put out. That's why we have a website. It is not necessarily an advertisement website. It's a website that's built solely for you all as subawardees to be able to have access to the information that we have put out. And we try really hard to make sure everything is up and current on there. Over the next month, so I think by the end of the month, we are going to be transitioning onto the crib.org website. Our content will remain the same. Our commitment to uploading websites or uploading webinars material will probably take a little bit longer, but it's still there. We will still be loading resources. And so I'm not exactly sure what will happen to cribacorns.org, if it will automatically reroute you to crib.org or what that will exactly look like. But I'm just telling you this now so that you know, over the next few weeks, you'll receive some communication from myself about a website change, and you'll get the new link, and we'll all kind of get through this together, this transition. But I want you to know that's the purpose of the website. In the time that we're transitioning websites, I will probably start emailing you all more often, like loading our webinars to YouTube so that everyone has access to it immediately. Things like that will happen. But just know that our website will change, and I will communicate that via email as well. But just so you're not surprised later when that messaging comes out. Okay, I'm going to give everyone a shot at unmuting again, just to see if there are any last questions. We're at about 45 minutes. Are there other questions about phase 2, reporting, payments?
You know, this is Janice. I kind of missed the beginning when you were talking about the funding and the checks that were coming in. A lot of my stuff will start in November, but is that when everything will happen, as soon as I get that first half check?
You can start before that. You can start your
okay.
But if you hold the payment, you understand if that's why you haven't started your activity. But Janice, I know that you're subcontracted in. It should be, you know, in this 2 to 4 week processing.
I didn't know that instead of you, you never came and told me. She didn't come over to talk to her yesterday. She wasn't. I told her that it would be Mr. Sheik and
other questions?
He goes, if Mr. Sheik doesn't come in, I'll still go by myself. Me and Alma will go on a consistent. That's what because when I was talking about how to interview stuff.
So I will email out the slides as well as the recorded version of this webinar to all of you for your reference. Thank you again for joining us today. Please know that we all here are here to support you. Feel free to email us, call us with questions, concerns. We're really looking forward and are really excited about this upcoming year. We are not running the phase 1 at the same time as phase 2 this year, so our energy on phase 2 is just really focused and high this coming year. So we're 100% excited and ready to work with you and find resources for you if that's what's needed. I do see a hand raised. Andrew.
Yes. Do we not have a post-webinar evaluation going out?
Yeah, so we are trying out something new on this webinar. GoToWebinar is going to email you a post-webinar evaluation. It's our first time using that system. I'm hoping it's really straightforward, but you all will get a set of questions that are specific to this webinar that will help us better our webinars in the future. So please do complete that evaluation. If for some reason that system doesn't work for us, Andrew's going to follow up with a SurveyMonkey link that you all can evaluate this webinar as well. It will. You should get that survey immediately concluding this webinar. Please do fill it out. We really will use it to inform later webinars and get in the habit of this. We will be evaluating every training opportunity that is hosted by ACORNS or our tobacco program. So this should become really familiar with it and just used to every training, evaluating it and letting us know, giving us some feedback. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We look forward to working with you. If you haven't got your subcontract in, please do that. Respond to the summary statements and stay tuned for our next training opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.